Welcome here, everybody. Welcome to our exciting gathering of celebrating the emissions reduction grant of 2025. We're celebrating it today, April 14th, 2026. And we are also launching the program for the coming year. So any of you who are here tonight or who are watching later, this is a chance to get your excitement going for your own emissions reduction project starting really, really soon. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. And thank you to those who are watching the recording. Thank you for tuning in, for tracking this down and tuning it in. We hope you enjoy the stories and conversation that are to come. And we hope that you are inspired to reducing emissions in your own situation. It's good to be together. I want us to begin by grounding ourselves and naming that as we plant our feet on the ground where we sit today, and if you have an opportunity to do so, put your feet down. We recognize that we are planted across this great land, this great continent. We are planted in many places. Our nationwide family of faith, Mennonite Church Canada, spans from the east to the west in lands which are connected by waterways that have sustained life on this continent for a very long time. The people who have long lived on this land and who welcomed settlers as guests are still among us. We are grateful for the hospitality of many groups of First Nations peoples. Let's commit ourselves to live in right relationship with all of life where we are, and let's commit to doing the work to build relationships with each other and with the land that sustains and holds us. So for us to get a sense of where we all are, I want you to take a second to type in the chat your name and the waterway or water body that is nearest to you. And if you're connected to a Mennonite Church Canada church, also type in the name of the church, the congregation that you're part of. And if you want to read those things, you can pop open the chat window and take a look at what gets put there. I'll do mine verbally while you're typing. I'm Sandy Plett, and the waterway nearest to me is the lovely Tinker Creek. It runs past my home near Morden, Manitoba. I'm part of Pembina Fellowship Church and also serve as Climate Action Coordinator for Mennonite Church Canada. I see that we have Tim Neufeld, First Mennonite in Edmonton, and talking about the North Saskatchewan River. Welcome, Tim. Wendy from the Laurel Creek or Grand River, part of Herb Street. Welcome, Wendy. Andy Quick, Grand River Watershed as well, First Mennonite in Kitchener. Welcome, Andy. Welcome, Eric from Sterling Mennonite, also Grand River, well represented here. Alan, welcome, the Bow River and Foothills Mennonite, that's in Alberta. Welcome, Dan, also the Bow. Ellie, welcome from Rouge Valley Mennonite in the Markham area. Brian from Toronto Chinese Mennonite Church, Lake Ontario, and the Don River, which flows into it. This is important. Joanne Bender, the Grand River from Waterloo, Ontario, Herb Street. And Dave Neufeld from Lethbridge, and the Old Man River, or do you say Oldman? The Oldman River?
The Old Man River.
The Old Man River, and I drove over it just less than a month ago as I was visiting. Welcome, Dave. Welcome, Glenn, also near the beautiful Grant, and Margot from the North Saskatchewan in Edmonton. Welcome, Sam from Grand River as well, or the Grand River in Kitchener, and Maciel, New Life Church close to Lake Ontario. Welcome, Maciel. Art, welcome from Waters Mennonite and Lively near the French River. Welcome. And Glenn from the beautiful Grand as well. First Mennonite, Kitchener, I'm pretty sure. Welcome here, everyone. It is just so good to be together. It's very exciting to be part of this time of identity building as a people of God who see caring for creation and ecological healing and wholeness as integral to following God's call. That is a gift. So thank you for being part of this really important work of the church. Let's pray together as we practice being together as the church. Spirit of life and creator, giver of all good, we are grateful for this opportunity to meet here tonight to share stories and motivations. We are grateful for this chance to express pride in accomplishments and to share aspirations and next steps. We are grateful for your constant invitation to us as we hear you say, "Follow me." And we commit to following you towards justice and peace, wholeness and healing in our world. Please bless this time that we have together. Amen. Welcome. So for those of you who are not familiar with the grant, probably our viewers, in a nutshell, Mennonite Church Canada congregations can apply for up to $3,000. I'm going to screen share so that you can see this. For those of you who are not familiar with the grant, in a nutshell, Mennonite Church Canada congregations can apply for up to $3,000 to support a project that will reduce greenhouse emissions of their building or property. In 2023, we handed out 9 grants. In 2024, we had 6 applications and all 6 received $3,000 in grant funding. And this last year, we had 8 applications. And again, we were able to fund all 8 projects. And you can read in depth these stories on the Mennonite Church Canada Emissions Reduction Grant website. Eric, do you mind popping that in the chat? And you can click that, it'll open in your browser and you can read those stories later. Don't read them now. You're going to hear them live right now. Thanks, Eric. So, why this grant? Usually, I tell people why I think this grant is important, but today I'm asking you. So, all of you who are here tonight, I invite you, this is not a must, but an invitation. Type in the chat your answer to this question that's on the screen. Why does Mennonite Church Canada offer this grant? What does emissions reduction have to do with our identity as followers of Jesus? So take a moment and type your thoughts. It could be very short, it could be a little longer. Let's see what comes out. Why would the church spend money and energy and time on this? Sometimes it takes a bit to come up with an answer. I get asked frequently, what does climate have to do with the church? And there is a really important practice in articulating these things. And it really does require practicing. Andy writes, we are commissioned to be caretakers of God's creation. Absolutely. But Daniel writes, I believe Jesus supports supporting the ecology to support his people. Totally. Caring for creation is our responsibility as Christ followers. Thanks, Joanne. We are charged with creation care. Simple. Thanks, Art. Wendy writes, this grant helps congregations to make changes that help them be better neighbors with the community of creation. Yes. Thanks, Glenn. Creation care, caring for what God has created. Well, there it is. That is beautiful. Brian says, MC Canada understands the importance of partnering and supporting churches in their mission, care for creation. Yes. Yes, and clearly, Mennonite Church Canada, as a body, as a group of congregations, a family, has understood this, and it is really, it's humbling to be part of a family of faith that prioritizes this work. Psalm writes, care for God's creation. Eric writes, we are a people of peace. This includes peace with creation. Furthermore, climate change threatens to undo so much great peacemaking and international development work worldwide. Absolutely. Yep. And as we dig into it, the reasons would go deeper and deeper into our theology and deeper into our connectedness as a human and an all of creation community. We recognize our connectedness. I don't think I need to give any more reasons. That is a beautiful way for us to begin. So why are we gathering? Oh, there's another. We're going to read it. Tim. Emissions negatively affect creation, and negative effects on creation affect the poor and marginalized, the vulnerable that Jesus calls us to feed, clothe, and care for and love. Absolutely. And Margot, a Jubilee project, the resetting of the church, working together towards doing our part. Yes, for climate action. Absolutely. So good. All right. Well, we're not going to end it here, although maybe we could, but we still have to hear all the stories. So let's keep going. Thank you so much. I'm going to save those later in the chat, and I'm going to make sure that we don't lose those nuggets because those are really important. So why gather to tell these stories? Why are you here for this hour and a half? And why are people watching this? I believe that sharing our stories deepens our connectedness as a nationwide family of faith. In a world that can be overwhelming, the news cycles are full of bad news, and the toll of that on our spiritual and mental health is significant. So it is important to gather, to catch our breath, and to recognize that we are not alone, but have the potential to be deeply and meaningfully in community with others. And when we gather to share stories and experiences, we are practicing deepening that connectedness. Also, celebration, celebrating the work sparks energy and motivation to continue acting out of love for God, others, and for all of creation. We have so many good ideas among us, they need to be shared. And doing these projects is an important part of building a steady and faithful response to the climate crisis. We are a people of God who take faithful and hopeful action. A couple of things. First, I want to say doing an emissions reduction project does not happen overnight. Each of your stories represents a series of steps leading to this moment. Some folks have shared their ideas and concerns and priorities within your congregation. You have shared those more broadly. You've discerned. Sometimes your decisions have been based on urgent needs. Sometimes they're based on long-term goals. All of these things come together. You've then chosen a direction, you've raised money, you've put together an application for funding, and you have implemented or are about to implement your project. It's very exciting to hear these stories. So I don't have a lot more to say before we get into the stories here, because now it's story time. These are the churches that will speak, and not in that order. So don't pay too close attention to that list. I think I sent all the speakers the order, so you should know. We are going to begin with Brian. So Brian, you can get ready. And everybody else, as you listen with your paper and pen next to you, write down your questions and the name of the person you want to ask the question. So when Brian's speaking, we won't pause after each story for questions, but I want you to remember, if you heard Brian say something that made you so curious, after all the stories are done, you can go back to your notes and check and ask your question. So we begin with Toronto Chinese Mennonite Church. I had a great introduction to TCMC through Dan Dick, who sent me a very enthusiastic email most of the time after he interviews somebody. He does this. He loves talking to you people. When I called Brian last week, I found myself wishing for a visit to Toronto really soon. It sounded like an energy and a spirit-filled place. And Brian is the pastor there and is with us today. So Brian, give us a wave and then take it away. Start by telling us about your project and what did you do with the grant money?
Hmm. Well, it's great to be here. I'm glad that I'm in good company. Let's see. So the picture you see here is the after shot already. Um, it is a space that was built in the 1960s. It's very practical, very big, very functional, and we've been using it for probably a good 2 decades. And the lighting that used to be there were long 8 foot fluorescent tubes. And they did their job mostly. They lasted this long. But they seemed to develop a talent for random special lighting effects. And that's when they were working. Some of them were off permanently. So replacing them was moving up on the priority list there. And it was somewhat of an adventure to get them replaced because we don't own any scissor lifts, we don't have any scaffolding. So one of our individuals, when they were required to change those lamps, they would build a platform, wooden platform, put wheels on it, and then on top of it, they would put in a platform ladder. So I'm sure, OSHA would not be happy with it, but that's how we did it. So replacing them has been on our list for a while. And as it started to move up closer towards the top, we heard about this grant. And we thought this would be a catalyst. It would get right to the very top if we had this grant approved, and we got it approved. And all of a sudden, this moved up very quickly to the top. So we don't need any more rolling contraptions, and there's no more dim and gray Sundays, which are very common when it's overcast in our church.
That sounds typical and makes a lot of sense. So Brian was telling me about how they think about space and the impact of lighting. So how do you connect lighting and community building, Brian?
Mm-hmm. I still remember the first Sunday that these lights were actually working. People walked in the door and immediately they looked up and they said, wow, it's so bright. It feels so refreshing. And how did we put up with this for so long? So in that moment, I recognized lighting isn't just a building upgrade. It changes how people feel in the space and how people feel inside of them. And this room is one of the hearts of our community life here. On Sundays, this is the space where our Cantonese speaking group will worship. This is their worship space every Sunday. It's an older congregation, so proper lighting is important as they open up the hymn book or open up their Bibles. And on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, the seniors would fill this space. We have a seniors drop-in group and they would do dancing, stretching, yoga. And we also have a daycare. And this would be their activity space when there's inclement weather outside, they would come up here. And then on Fridays, the youth, it's nighttime. So this is the running activity space for them. So one room, but many communities come and gather, and it actually feels more alive and welcoming with the increase in lighting.
One of the cool things that Brian mentioned to me when we were chatting is that after COVID, the people were very scattered around the building. And what did you do, even before these lights, what did you do to like magnetize the people?
Yes, you can see there's wooden beams there because the youth were free range chickens after COVID. They were just scattered around, one in this corner, another here. We decided, let's just put up a badminton net, get some badminton rackets, and that drew them into this space. And they started playing badminton together. And some of them haven't seen each other for maybe a year and a half. And some of them who are new may not have been known some of the members. So this became an activity room every Sunday. We just pulled the net out and people came and started playing badminton.
One of my favorite sports in the church stories. I love that. Okay, tell us what motivated and motivates folks at TCMC towards spending money on lights besides the community building.
I think there's our church is a pretty strong stewardship of building. There's genuine pride in making it a better space for everyone. And it comes down really to the people. We've been blessed over the years with some very talented individuals, very handy, very self-motivated, always willing to roll up their sleeves and do the repair or upgrade themselves. So I think there's a wonderful DNA, a very practical one. And some of that points to perhaps our Chinese culture of being very practical, frugal, and being self-sufficient. So I don't think I told you this story. Our boiler, we shall say, has a very temperamental personality. And rather than sending it out to a contractor or building manager to manage it for us, our general manager at that time, this is 20 years ago, he installed a desktop PC and a camera so he can watch it overnight. So this was before baby monitors, video baby. So this was his baby. He monitored the boiler overnight so that on Sunday morning we would have a warmer space. So this is the kind of culture that we have with this space. People really care about the building.
That is a great story. All right, the very last one, and maybe in just a couple of words, what are some other ways that creation care shows up in church and community life at TCMC? Maybe list a couple of things. Oh, and I'm going to show one of them when you say it.
Okay. Yeah. So in the spring, which is now Earth Day is coming up, we have a community garden with many beds, and we invite the community to come in. We also have an annual repair cafe. That's a grassroots movement started in Europe, and we invite the community to come bring their broken items, and we help them learn to repair it. And we also have freshly, not off the press yet, but we have a green card. And this is ways and tips that we can share with the congregation and how to be good stewards of our earth that's been given to us.
There it is, the blue-green card. I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Brian. Folks, write your questions down. That was Brian Kwan from Toronto Chinese Mennonite Church. Thank you for sharing. We're going to roll right on to Eric from Sterling. So Eric is a new member of Mennonite Church Canada's Sustainability Leadership Group. And I met Eric through Pastor Laura Entz at Sterling, through whom I've come to understand Sterling as a congregation with a passion for justice, including climate justice. And so glad that you're with us, Eric. The image you see is the one that Eric says best represents the inadequately insulated ductwork that will get upgraded insulation treatment. So yours is generally a hidden project, Eric. Tell us how folks at Sterling discovered a problem and what they did to remedy it.
Yeah, so we discovered this last winter when we had water leaking through the office roof. So Victor Kloss and our head of facilities went up into the attic to investigate where the water was coming from and found that it was surprisingly warm up there for being, I can't remember, -10, -14 outside. It was well above freezing up there. So we realized that heat was coming from somewhere, and so then we looked more into it and found that many of the ducts up there have kind of quite low amounts of insulation, and it's not always kind of well attached, coming off in some places. And so we're in the process of investigating kind of exactly how best to better insulate these ducts, getting some quotes from contractors. The first one that we got was not that promising. It was kind of one of those go away quotes. We don't really want to do this project. It's kind of too small for us. So we're hoping the second quote comes in better, or else we might be looking at doing it ourselves. That's also an option. Yeah.
All right. So how do you think about small projects like sealing and insulation in the grand scale of what needs to happen in response to climate change? Why do these small things matter?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first of all, improving the building envelope is often the most cost-effective way to reduce heating and cooling costs. So it's not glorious, but it can make a big difference for a reasonable amount of money. And I think beyond that, it also sends a message that these kinds of incremental improvements matter. For example, if we all reduce our building emissions by 5%, kind of for any one building, that's not a whole lot. But if we all do that, it ends up being a huge impact. And I think it also shows that care that Brian was just talking about. It shows that kind of we're not just doing these things because they're flashy things to do to kind of show that we're green. We're going to do those smaller, harder tasks too. That and when you add all those little ones up, they can actually make um, a big difference. And all that to say, these little ones can also be challenging. As I was saying, they're often kind of less enticing for contractors because they're really small projects, and you often kind of have to get your hands dirty a little bit and get in there yourself and try and figure out what's the best way to do this. But We're lucky at Sterling that we've got quite a number of people with some building experience who are willing to get in there.
Awesome. Okay, so last question. The church building is not the only building owned by your congregation. So tell us about the dreams that Sterling has related to additional spaces and buildings.
Yeah, so we actually own 5 houses, all surrounding the church property. And so recently we've been doing some visioning around developing some or all of those into an affordable housing project. Because we know there is a big need for affordable housing. And so right now we've kind of narrowed the scope a little bit and we're looking, there's 3 houses kind of right at the corner of Sterling and Weber for anybody who knows the area that we're looking at putting in a essentially kind of an affordable housing apartment building. Um, but so along with that, there's some opportunities. So for example, there's a potential opportunity for a shared geothermal system that could perhaps service that building as well as our church building, which would be awesome. Um, but that has also kind of held up some of our plans to kind of move more quickly because we don't want to put considerable capital into those houses if we're going to be knocking them down soon. For example, we don't want to be putting in heat pumps there, and we don't want to necessarily be putting in air source heat pumps into the church that will then be rendered ineffective if we end up going with a geothermal system. So all that has kind of slowed down some of the bigger things that we're hoping to do while we try and get clarity around what exactly are we doing? And that's all kind of coming together, but anybody who's been involved in a building project, no, there's a lot of steps and a lot of thinking and especially when it comes to a church building project, there's a lot of ideas and opinions and it takes a while to talk through all that. But yeah, it's good to see that things are coming together. So as a church, we've actually got a goal to eliminate all our carbon producing heating and cooling. So our gas furnaces, our gas water heaters, get rid of all those by 2030 is our goal. And so we're still going to keep the kitchen stoves, their gas, but until they reach the end of their life, we put them in not that long ago. But everything else, basically all our other gas burning things, we're planning to get rid of. So we've actually started a decarbonization capital fund to help cover all these improvements, which is great. So we can start building that up even while we're kind of still waiting to actually tackle those projects in a couple years once we get more clarity around our big building project.
That's really inspiring. I know there are other congregations and communities that are thinking about bigger scope, and it does slow things down, but that's not always a bad thing. So also, yeah, not glorious. That's a good thing for people to remember. Sometimes these things are not glorious, but they can make a big difference. Thanks so much, Eric, for sharing about Sterling. We're going to move to Dave Neufeld from Lethbridge Mennonite, and Joanne, you'll be after Dave. I should be giving people a heads up who's on deck. So Dave, oh yeah, okay. So I was lucky enough to visit Lethbridge Mennonite in March when Lethbridge hosted the Mennonite Church Alberta Delegate Sessions. What a party. I tell you, the Alberta Church family hosted guests and delegates from Friday evening until Sunday lunch, serving food, offering worship and workshops, storytelling, and great singing. It was a really good time. Dave and his partner Marie generously hosted me at their home, which I learned is the first net zero home in the city of Lethbridge, which is also super cool. If you're not sure what net zero means when it comes to a home, you can follow up with Dave, no doubt. So Dave, here's Lethbridge Mennonite Church. What is the project? Yeah, tell us what's happening.
Well, as you can tell from the picture, our project is solar panels. Uh, we've decided on putting in solar panels, and one of the one of the rules in Alberta, I've learned that rules are different across the country. But as a micro generator, you can't generate more than what you consume, or going 10% over and is okay. And that's so we decided to cover all of our energy consumption costs. So we wanted to get the maximum size that we could, and that's what we were doing.
Okay. So when is the project happening, Dave?
Well, this picture that you're looking at was taken around noon yesterday.
And would you like me to go to the next one?
Yeah, go to the next one. And this was around 7 o'clock last night.
Isn't that amazing? This is happening right now. Okay.
And there
Yeah.
are also panels on the other side. We're just seeing the one side here.
Okay. So how did your congregation make this decision?
Okay. There's been interest in environmental issues within the church for many years. And during a visioning process that we went through a couple of years ago, it sort of surfaced as something that was important to many members of the church. There's at least 4 families that I know of in the church that have solar panels on their homes. And so that was the one part of it. Another part of it was that we received a substantial bequest a couple of years ago. And there weren't any stipulations on how that money was to be spent, but we wanted to do something special with it, not just put it into the budget. So that was another factor. And so over time, we started exploring putting on solar panels. Now, when it came to actually making the decision, there was definitely diversity in the congregation.
Like everyone didn't just say, yes, let's do it right away.
No, and some people just thought that's not what we're called to as a church. That's not our primary motivation or mission, I should say. But the thing that made a difference in the final decision was the financial one, that we were able to justify it on a financial basis. And so then, we had, when the decision was made, there was very strong support to move ahead. Now, I'll describe some of those financial things. We're looking at hard to say exactly until we've got it functioning, but about a 10-year payback on it. And one of the things that helped was things like the emissions reduction grant that cuts down on the payback period. One of the advantages of being in southern Alberta is the amount of sunshine that we have here. So if solar panels are justified anywhere, this is one place where they are justified. And the other thing that we have in Alberta is there's a solar club that you become part of, and you can set different rates. So the rule in Alberta is that the energy that you generate and put onto the grid, you're paid at the same rate as what you're charged for what you use coming off of the grid. So those are matched numbers. So with this solar club, you're able to switch between a high rate during the summer when you're producing more and a lower rate in the winter when you're consuming more. And it's a substantial difference. So our rates are 8.4 cents per kilowatt hour in the winter and 35 cents per kilowatt hour in the summer. And so that's another factor that we have here that cuts down on the payback for the panels. And another factor that was discussed as part of this decision-making process is then, well, if we're going to be saving this money and then in the long term we're generating revenue from it, that's something that then we can then use the savings from that for other projects moving forward. And so that's that combination of things led to the decision to go ahead with this.
That's a good combination of things. Okay, one last question, and give us one piece of advice for a congregation that's considering installing solar panels.
I think it's important to really understand, if you're looking at the finances of it, understand how your bill is calculated. A lot of our costs are distribution costs and transmission costs that we are not, you don't get paid back for those. So you have to understand all of those things. And the other implications like the age of your roof, whether you're going to have to be paying more insurance for it, and just to really look into all of those things.
Do a deep dive, in other words. Awesome. Thank you so much, Dave. I'm excited next time I come to Lethbridge, I'll be sitting under solar energized lights. That will be cool. All right, next we have Joanne Bender from Herb Street Mennonite. I met Joanne last year when we were hosting the solar panel, and I don't know if anyone here in the room today attended that Zoom conversation, but it was a hoot. I see some waves. You can find it on Common Word, on Mennonite Church Canada's Common Word. You can just Google solar panel, the word panel twice, and you'll get a really cool conversation about solar panels. Joanne is talking about a different project today, but yes, so much enthusiasm. So I asked Joanne to tell us about the lighting update at Herb Street, and as we talked, it became clear that this story makes the most sense in the context of a bigger picture, a bigger project they had undertaken, a sanctuary refresh. So what does a sanctuary refresh mean, and how does the lighting upgrade fit into that? Tell us, Joanne.
Well, about in 2024, our worship committee realized that our sanctuary, which had not been updated for more than 2-3 decades, was just really dark. And some of the aging people in our congregation were finding it difficult to see the hymnal, to read in the sanctuary. So our primary motivation was to brighten up the sanctuary. We also wanted to live into our welcoming statement, which is to make our sanctuary more welcoming for people. And so it seemed that it was a good time to at least update lighting and painting. Well, of course, when a project gets started, then one sees other things that could be done. And so it became clear that if we just built out the front of the church so that we'd have a bigger stage, that would be great for when we do choir presentations and children's programs. And then we thought, hey, we need to get with it in terms of accessibility. So we decided to put in a ramp which would be useful for elderly people, people in wheelchairs, so that they can get right up to the front of the sanctuary, up to that stage. And we also decided that we wanted our sound to be better for people with hearing impairments, or even people who need translations, because we have 2 languages in our congregation, English and Kinyumalenge. And we have Congolese people in our congregation. And so the update of the sound booth gave us the ability to provide hearing devices for the hearing impaired, and also to provide spontaneous or simultaneous translations from English to Kinyarwanda for our Congolese friends. So all of these things made us realize that accessibility was a very important issue, and that's why we wanted to upgrade our sanctuary, refresh our sanctuary. So we presented our ideas to the congregation and had some meetings, and were able to go ahead. We also decided to keep the wooden pews, but to add chairs as well. So these are also more accessible for people, and we have some spots where wheelchairs can go into the seating. So those were our main things that we wanted to do in our refresh.
I love that. I love that you recognize that this work could reduce emissions and make the building more welcoming and accessible. So, what have you noticed now that it's done? What are the benefits that are really obvious to you?
Yeah, well, your pictures here really tell the story. On the left, you can see what the front of the church especially looked like. There was that alcove there. It was dark. The painting was dark, and the pulpit was actually under that alcove. So sound wasn't as good, visual wasn't as good. We had a lot of dark wood in the sanctuary. And so the vision was to brighten it up. And as you can see from the picture on the right, which was taken on the first day that we dedicated the new refreshed sanctuary, it is much brighter. And one of the really noticeable things is those beautiful pendant lights, which are LED lights. So these are especially for churches. And of course, we were thrilled to have them using less electricity, also lasting much longer, and not needing to be changed as frequently. So those were side benefits that helped our church to become, or our sanctuary to be much brighter. You can see a few of the chairs at the back. Those are really helpful for a lot of people. You can see at the right-hand side at the very front, there's a ramp, and that has also added accessibility. And just in general, I think you can see a welcoming space, and that's what our goal was. And we also have excellent sound and acoustics, and we had that before, and we didn't want to lose it, and we didn't lose it. We love singing, and that first Sunday, and ever since then, the singing has just been full and beautiful.
That is so great. That's a great story. Okay, your last question. How does creation care show up in the life and practice of your congregation? Besides,
Yeah, we have a number of people who are very environmentally conscious, and they ride their bikes to church. A lot of people can walk to church. This April, on the Sunday just after Earth Day, we're going to have a blessing of the bikes. So people are encouraged to walk or to bring their bikes to church, and we'll have an actual blessing outdoors of those bikes. We also are going to have a series of creation care sermons and adult education in September and October, and those are going to be headed up by our pastor, Wendy Jansen, who is the pastor of Burning Bush Forest Church, and she's on this meeting right now. So we do have a lot of very environmentally minded people. We also have solar panels on our roof, which were installed in 2007, and they are not providing energy for our church. What they are doing is putting energy into the grid, for which we get paid. And after we got those solar panels paid for, we were able to make money from them, which we devote to mission projects that people can apply for. So each year we have $6,000 to $10,000 to give out to energy efficient projects, such as planting trees, and also sending kids to camp and things like that, that really take care of our environment. And we also appreciated going through the application process for this grant, because the questionnaire, the survey, made us think about what we can do more. And we're going to be looking at that this fall at Herb Street Church.
awesome. If anyone is curious about the grant program that Joanne talked about, please do watch the solar panel video because it gets a nice description. Oh yeah, there it is. The link is in the chat. Joanne gives a great sort of in-depth look at that program. Thank you so much, Joanne. Really appreciate your sharing. We're going to go to Dan from Foothills, and after Dan will be Margot. So something good is in the water at Foothills. 3 years ago, I met two young people from Foothills, Charlene Lozier and Liesl Retzlaff. They were attending a climate-themed retreat in Manitoba, and by the time they left, they were ready to start a creation care working group in Mennonite Church, Alberta, and they did just that. Together with a handful of other young adults, they got a group going, and that group is still working at raising the creation care conversation in the MCA congregations. So this solar project is just another of the great things coming out of Foothills. So Dan, what is something you love about Foothills Mennonite Church?
I think the people. I've been at Foothills for 26 years now. And yeah, it's become a home. It's a fellowship together. So yeah, I think that's probably the biggest. And I think that's what a church is the people.
I was going to say that's not a nothing answer. That is exactly right. Totally.
Um,
Yeah. So do you want to tell us about the project at Foothills?
So the project at Foothills is something I had been thinking about for a while, and the board, I was on the board at the time. The board came up and supported this, and so we went to the congregation with it. Some years ago, we had started a guest house, which was to support people from out of town who had to come to Calgary for hospital care, not so much the patients as family of patients. During COVID, some things changed and that became less effective. And even afterwards, there were other facilities that had been set up. So we ended up selling that, and then the funds were supposed to go into, there were a number of different things that the church had selected, but creation care was one of them. And so this was kind of brought before the church as a creation care project that that we were going to be reducing our CO2 emissions and so on by doing this. And so it fit into that. A lot of the money goes directly to volunteer organizations. But this was another arm of what we would do with that money. And so I expected Dave had mentioned earlier there was some disagreement about the project. I expected that and was kind of prepared for some answers. When we had the congregational meeting, there were questions about the process of how we were going through it, but there were really no questions about the viability or the concept of doing this. So I felt I had very, very strong congregational support to pursue this. And we have 56 solar panels in total. And as Dave has mentioned, it's basically 10% above what your previous year's energy consumption is that you were allowed to put on. But the microgeneration consideration in Alberta is a strong lever toward going to this, and realization also that the bulk of Alberta's energy supply is still carbon based.
Right.
So if you're buying electricity from the grid, it's still coming from carbon resources for the most part.
That's right. Seems like this is a good idea in Alberta right now, not only because of the sunshine, but because of a lot of things.
It does make a lot of financial sense here.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, the last question. How does this project fit with the faith and practice of your congregation?
Well, I think going back to Joanne's comment about bicycles, we've put a bike rack in the front also to encourage that. Where and our pastor had a thing going last year where everybody would put their combined mileage, was trying to say, yeah, it's gotten me from here to Vancouver type of thing, but just there is a lot of process in there. Even before we've done this, some years ago we replaced all the windows with triple pane windows to deal with the envelope of the church and what we were losing there. And our church was built in 1965, so it's not up to the new standards really, but we're gradually doing. We've also replaced well, not all, 4 out of 5 furnaces we replaced with more energy efficient furnaces. For us, the heat pump is not particularly practical. Just we have unique circumstances there. So you work with what works best in your area, and I feel very supported by the congregation and the work that has been done here. So for me personally, the comments I have had of it have all been very, very positive.
Nice. That is a really good word too. That every congregation and every location, every building, what's the right project is different based on where you are. And so, yeah, that's just really good for everybody listening and thinking about what can we do. And like Dave said, a deep dive into your building and your circumstance, where you are in the country, what your climate looks like. All those are good things. Thank you so much, Dan, for sharing about this and giving us a little window into Foothills life. And I hope it's a bike full spring again over there, like it was last summer. We're going to jump over to Edmonton and hear from Margot. So, Margot, my first stop when I traveled to Alberta in March was actually Holyrood Mennonite Church, where my good friend Margot was waiting to give me a tour of the church building. In 2023, we offered a small grant to Holyrood for some insulation work. So this was their second grant. And I was super curious to see Margot, to meet her in person, and to see the space that we had spoken so much about. I tell you, the tour did not disappoint. It was great to see how the congregation makes use of their space, sharing with some office rentals and another congregation, they've been sharing for more than a decade. The corners of the building gave me insight into challenges that congregations with older buildings face. And the picture I have here is a picture of the church basement. I took pictures of the furnace room. I took pictures of the basement Sunday school corners. Uh, you know, the buildings are sprawling and there are so many details to stay on top of. My respect for those in our church family who look after the details, who pump out flooded corners and notice the flickering lights and the failing pumps, the fans, the roof tiles, the furnaces, all of those things. My respect for you is immense. You keep us gathering in comfort and you make possible the work of the church through your commitment. Margot is here with us, and I've got a few questions for you, Margot. So the first question is, why did you end up applying for a grant again this year?
Well, the first one was we started out small. We started out with the insulation or the weather stripping around doors. We had gaps and mice and snow came in. But the second one was actually, this was an emergency situation. It was an emergency response to ask for a grant. And this is while, our church is from the 50s, 1957, volunteer built, and we have a rooftop furnace that is as old, basically was as old as the church. And and it gave out. Of course, it doesn't go out, even though it was on the, it's on the maintenance list. It's on sort of the list of what needs to be replaced eventually, but it didn't wait. It gave out on the very coldest time of the year. And that particular furnace heats the sanctuary, only the sanctuary. And it became extremely cold. And we had to start from scratch to get estimates and can it be repaired. There were attempts at repairing the gears housing, I don't remember momentarily, was warped. And so we fiddled around with that for a number of attempts, paid for the attempt to make it work. And then basically, it's not worth it. We need to replace it. And it's amazing, right? Because you have to not only, you have to do so much research. All of a sudden, you have to get estimates. And then once you have the estimates, you have, then there's that waiting time. Then there's the time the part has to be purchased, and then the installation. And meanwhile, it was just -30, basically, more or less the whole time. So we couldn't use the sanctuary, but we have on the picture on the right, it's our fellowship hall in the basement, which has a separate furnace. And so we moved our worship service into the basement. Our church and the Spanish church, who worships in the afternoon. And it looks sort of big and empty and cold, but in actual fact, it was just it turned out to be a really beautiful experience. We had to shrink everything. It became more intimate. The music became, instead of being in the front of the sanctuary, it really became part of the congregation. And so for the 4 weeks or so, it actually worked out really beautifully. Yeah.
It worked well.
But the rooftop furnace was an incredible expense, not in the budget. And it really depleted our what is it called? I forgot it now.
The cushion.
And so we're really grateful to have that and to get that grant. Yeah, for sure. The
Thanks, Margo.
thermostat, we can now adjust it so much better when the sanctuary is occupied and when it's not occupied, and it has worked out really good.
You can set it back. All right. I'm going to ask, we've got 2 more people, and I want to make sure we have time to get all these stories. So you talked about wishing for more connectedness with others who could do this kind of church facility upkeep work. So I want you to just share with us, what's one thing that you think churches could maybe share more amongst each other?
Well, I'm so glad that we have this, that you have organized this, because I've already learned so much. I have like pages of notes already. In the beginning, it was it was so difficult to get started on that, and even what we can do, because we are a small church and we have a limited budget. And so our projects by default have to be modest and also have to be the best that we can do. So then my question was, well, who can advise, right? Who can advise me on that, and take some of the pain, really. I mean, it was just so painful to have to start from scratch looking at contractors, and and figuring out what is the best way forward. So I think what I would love to see already in the grant application, if there was some way of collecting data. For example, Joanne, you talked about your lights. What kind of lights are those? And also, and more practical kind of advice for some. I mean, there's only so much, right? There's like the insulation. What kind of insulation? And how did contractors, I know the contractors in Lethbridge are different from um, Edmonton, but just if it was part of the grant application, there could be like a data, some sort of a list generated where you could look up, if I want to know more about the solar panels. Right now I'm planning a workshop for Dave and Daniel.
Perfect.
In Alberta. We'll invite you to Edmonton, and maybe, we can, like, it's just so wonderful. There's so many things that we can do, but to have that list available, that would be so helpful, because, you can gain so much even if it's not exactly applicable.
That is a great idea. Thank you so much, Margot, and thanks for your warm welcome when I visited. We'll go to Som, and then last will be Robert, or I'm not sure. Yeah, there you are. So this is Grace Lao Mennonite Church, and folks from Grace Lao have been present in my MC Canada world since I started working for the church a couple years ago. Former pastor Yoel Masayawang was a joint council member at that time, and had clearly prioritized creation care in his work. And so I'm so excited to have Som with us, and Savang also, to share with us about this latest project. So the first question is, what is the project you did and why did you do it?
Actually, not in this committee because last couple of years I've been running around outside of the church and do the training here and there all the time. In last November, I was in Thailand with the Janet and Norm. It's kind of this project is kind of news to me when I heard they talking about it, and it was something that I think leadership have been thinking about that before, because of every time that the wind come, it will blew off all the shingles and everything like that from the roof, and they keep thinking about and talking about. I think we should put the steel roof on it. It should be help a lot. And like when a big wind or when a storm or something come, then could be save us a lot of time to fix and things like that. And every time when the big winds come, and we have to run to church and to check the roof and that around the corner and those neighborhood, and they were something like that. That's why they make a decision to put a steel roof on the church.
All right, so the project is a steel roof, and you can't see it in this picture because it's not complete, but maybe we'll get a completed photo at some point. So, what next question is, how did or will you raise the money? How did you get the money for this roof project besides the grant, which clearly didn't cover it all?
Actually, we have a budget for the roof. I think that's what they told me. The financier told me they have the budget for the roof only 22,000
Oh,
for the years for the roof, and they contact the contractor that and they've been keep bargaining how they gotta get low as they can, and they come up with $25,000, and they think, how can we have only 22,000 budget? And so I think Yoel has come up with this emission fund, and they said, why don't we try to apply for this fund with MC Canada, and we might get 3,000, and we meet our things, and that's what they did, and that's how the this 25,000 roof have been come up, and we do some fundraising for agro fundraising every year for Pacific project too, and I think we have some money from member that to pay it off first, and we are paying back later, and something like that. That's what to try to cover, and we do the agro fundraiser for the roof too.
nice. So all you Kitchener folks, egg roll fundraiser, don't miss it. I'm guessing that's pretty good.
Yeah, March May 2nd.
Okay, it's coming right up. This is your chance to advertise. Awesome. Okay, one last question. What is the next project for your church building?
Yeah, I've been told that there's a lot of things to do.
Yeah.
In the sanctuary that it's been carpet. It's been there since they built the church.
Okay.
Maybe about 35 years ago. That's carpet been there, and they're changing the color now. So they want to either they gotta put the hardwood floors in, or ceramics in, or something like that. That's what they're looking at right now, and some about the office stuff like that too, computer and all those things. That's what the next project for Grace Lau.
Stuff to do. There's always stuff to do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much. And honestly, if you have a picture of the finished roof and you want to send it, I'll send it around to folks next week when I send a follow-up message. Thank you so much for sharing with us and for doing this project. All right, our last project is Listowel Mennonite Church. Robert is here with us. Listowel got a grant also in our first round of grants 2 years ago. And one intriguing creation care action they've taken is installing a waterless urinal. You heard me right. You can ask Robert about that. I'm pretty sure he even sent me a picture. So, Robert, tell us about the project that Listowel undertook this time around for this grant.
Okay. This was a solar panel business. We'd looked at it 12 years ago and it didn't fly. So we went back at it again this year, or last year, I should say. And we got it approved through the annual meeting with about 75% support. There's always a few that aren't sure about it. Figured the money could be better used maybe in missions or something. But so anyway, we ended up putting in a 10 kilowatt. That's the maximum in Ontario that we can put on in a net metering system. And so in a net metering system, whatever we don't use goes back out into the grid and we get a credit on our bill. We get paid the same going out as what they charge us coming in. So it saves having a battery pack and stuff like that. So we hope this would save us, it's saving us about 40% so far. With the amount of hydro we use, we'd need two of these units, but at this moment, we'll go with this and see how it works out.
Nice. Okay, so as a two-time grant applicant, how has the conversation around emissions progressed or changed in your congregation in the last few years? Has anything changed?
I don't know if it's changed a whole lot. It's not really vocal, but when you come with a project, the majority of the people tend to support something that can reduce our climate footprint a bit. There's always those that aren't sure that it's a crisis or that it could be used better someplace else. And we're an aging congregation, so that's the other question that comes up. Are we even going to be here yet before these solar panels wear out? But no, majority wise, yeah, they're seeing more that we've got to do something to cut global warming, and this is a start in the right direction.
It totally is. So, Robert, why do you spend your time on this kind of work, reducing emissions and improving efficiency? Why does it matter to you? How does this connect with your faith?
Oh, we're told to care for creation, create care for the earth we've been put on to look after it. And so if we each do a little bit, I think we can do a lot. But some people say, well, turning off a few light switches here and there, it's not going to make any difference. But if we all do it, it does make a difference. If we can walk a little bit, instead of driving sometimes, that all helps.
Yes, I was muted. Sorry. We are called to care for creation. And you stated it beautifully. And as people wrote in the chat earlier in our call, this is work of following Jesus. So I just want to again express my gratitude to all of you for bringing these stories and for bringing your passion and for loving the next generations, loving our created kin, all of creation around us, and loving the rest of humanity in these ways. That concludes the story part of our conversation. And we don't really have, I'm going to pop back here. We don't have a ton of time, but there are some people here who maybe did not apply for a grant already, or who are watching this and really want to know, how do I get to this goodness? So very quickly, I'm going to walk through the steps of applying for the grant, and then we'll have time for a couple questions. So step one, you complete the Greener Congregation Vision exercise, which will look something like what you're seeing on the screen. There's some questions. This used to be called a score sheet for those of you who are wondering. It's similar, but it's less about points and more about vision. So that's the vision exercise. And then you will be given some resources to view, including recordings of videos like this one from the last few years, the solar panel, as we've discussed, and some energy efficient faith buildings webinars. You can watch all or none of these, but these are resources that can help with your decision making. And step three is to figure out what kind of a project you want to do. Some of them require an audit, some of them don't. And you can take a look at this, is all available on the website. And step four is to plan it. Consider your vision, consider the results of the audit or professional consultations, acquire estimates, determine the details, get your congregation on board. And those of you who have done this, you know this is important. And then step five, you apply. And I'm Sandy, and I'm the one you contact if you have any questions about the forms, about the process, or just about how to get started or how to finish it off. And every question is a good one. This is a resource available on the website, the Pyramid of Conservation, which might help you to think through priorities. And that is it for the instructions. So hopefully you wrote a few things down. Now is our chance. So, what questions do you have for one another?
I'd have one question for Joanne. When they replaced the lighting in their auditorium, did you get any feedback that it was maybe too bright?
Actually, yes, that's right, Robert. Maybe you're familiar with that. We had, incandescent lighting before. And
Right.
so the contrast with LED lighting is just quite dramatic. And so people said, it's too white, it's too bright. But they're all dimmable. All the light fixtures are dimmable. And recently, for our Maundy Thursday service, we had it all dimmed because it was an evening service, and it worked out beautifully. So, and we've added a bit of color with banners and things like that, plants, to give a little bit of contrast. But it is very bright. And on
Yes.
Easter Sunday, it was amazing. Easter Sunday morning, it just looked like Christ had risen.
You replaced your whole light fixture. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah.
We have similar fixtures and we just replaced the bulb in with LED bulbs. And now we found out that we can't get a dimmer pack to work on these at the moment.
Oh,
So we can't dim them too much. And we
Oh.
ran into a couple people that said they're too bright, but we're working on it.
There's a question here in the chat from Brian to Eric. 5 homes, were these bequested or purchased over the years? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't honestly know the full history of how they were acquired. Like some of them, it was quite a while ago. Like we're talking 40, 50 years, I think. I know a thrift store was run out of one of them at one point, I think, and yeah, all kinds of stuff. So I think, yeah, I think probably mostly purchased, but I'm not sure.
Thanks. Thanks for the question, Brian. Other questions? Just make sure you unmute if you want to tell us, ask something.
I might have missed some details, but Margaret, I think I was kind of uncertain. You had an emergency situation with your furnace, and what did you end up doing with that then? Did you put in a heat pump?
Margot and Hollywood.
Well, no, we had to replace it. Yeah, it's a very high roof. Nobody in our church has actually been up there. It's a flat roof. It's part of the roof itself that is flat. Everything else is shingled. Yeah, just getting people up there and while it's icy and snowy, and yeah, no, we had to replace it, and it was $32,000
So you
to
did
replace
replace
the
with a heat pump on the roof, or
Well,
it's
no, it's
yeah.
a regular, it's a regular, it's a modern
Yeah.
industrial
Furnace.
furnace.
Okay, yeah.
But I
We're
have a question about yeah.
Go ahead there.
I had a question about to Daniel about the heat pump because you just mentioned, yeah, the heat pump was not in Calgary is not a viable option. We have some spaces, small spaces. We have 6 furnaces all together in our church, heating different areas. And one of the area I thought could maybe be when we have to replace it, could be replaced by a heat pump, but I don't really understand it. Daniel sort of just dismissed it.
Well,
Is there any more
because
information?
of the temperature range that we have here, and below a certain temperature, heat pumps tend not to work very well. And so what you have to do is have backup heat if you have a heat pump. So you basically have to have a gas furnace supporting your heat pump if you get below a certain temperature. You can do it with electrical, but in Alberta that provides no real benefit to go to electrical because you're now burning gas to create electrical that you turn back into heat, which is less efficient than heating directly. So
Oh, okay.
I did a fair amount of research because I was hearing a lot of good things about heat pumps,
Mhm.
but in Alberta, they really are not a practical solution. They may be in the future, but at this point, they really are not.
Yeah, and Ellie is writing or calling in from Rouge Valley and has been asking about heat pumps. And just to say here, I'm pretty sure Art in Waters Mennonite, you did some air source heat pumps. That's in Southern Ontario. Is that correct? Art's with us. Oh, you're muted. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, we did two heat pumps. We only had we're a smaller church, so we had two furnaces, one for upstairs, one for downstairs. We put in two heat pumps. We had some issues with them, and they had some trouble with thermostats. I think was the main thing.
Mhm.
So, and I've been away for 3 months, so I'm not sure if that all got sorted out over the winter. I assume it did, but I haven't asked the questions yet since I'm back. But yeah, so it'll be another year before we have any real idea of what they're doing for us here.
Yeah. And other than that, I know we've had heat pumps installed in Langley Mennonite Fellowship in southern BC and also Toronto United Mennonite Church. So you can sort of see the warmer parts of the country are better spaces. The geothermal, the ground source heat pump, is an option in the colder climates. Here in Manitoba, we can use those. It's a much different sort of install and cost. But I have hope that, like Eric said, soon those will be like utilities and for multiple buildings. We got to push for our utilities to offer us better options as well for heating.
Yeah,
Any other questions here
Thank you.
before we sign off?
just a clarification. We're not really in southern Ontario. We're 400 kilometers north of Toronto, near
Oh,
Sud
wow. Okay. That's
near
further
Sudbury,
north than I thought.
near Sudbury. So, but we're putting in lots of heat pumps here, and how they're gonna work out and how they're gonna pay off is still remains to be seen. So
Guess I got to look at my map and see where things are. Really appreciate all of this, all of you for being here and sharing your stories and sharing your questions. I'm sure there are more questions and we could stay and chat for a long time, but I did not book you for longer than this hour and a half. So thank you so much. A reminder, if you're thinking of applying, this is for our viewers later or those who are here. If you want to apply and you have any questions at all, just reach out to me. I'm so happy to call and chat and figure things out with you. The application forms are available starting tomorrow. Joanne, you'll have to talk to Robert about the water this year. No, I'll leave you to it. The grants are open from now until September 30th. You can apply, so you have a long season to check it out. You can apply and you'll know by November if you're getting the grant. And so if your church budget is due later in the year, or if you're working on budget, hopefully the timing will work out so that you can make your plans. And then you have a year to spend the money from November to November. So there's a nice big window to actually get the project done. So much thanks to the panelists, the storytellers tonight. Thank you to those who came just to learn or to support this program. Thank you to you who are watching this later on. And thank you to Mennonite Church Canada family for providing the funds for this grant. I don't fundraise this money. This money comes from the congregations. It started with a one-time sort of injection of funds into the Creation Care Fund. We are using that money up. So if your congregation wants to consider adding to the Creation Care Fund, you can also do that. And that will go to support Creation Care projects and this grant so that it can go for more years into the future. So consider paying it forward as your emissions reductions begin to pay off financially. You can find donation options on Mennonite Church Canada's website. And our last thanks, of course, is to Creator God, who draws us together and invites us to the really important and beautiful work of caring for creation in community. That is our work. And so thank you for answering the call, and thanks for being here tonight. I wish you all a great night and blessings on all the things that you're up to. And that concludes our celebration. Thank you so much for joining us, and we wish you well as you serve and reduce emissions and move into the world. Blessings.